Uh, talk will be hosted by me and Ritvik Hate. So let's do it. BITS has been known for their esteemed alumni, ranging from engineers, CEOs, and individuals who crack competitive exams such as UPSC. The Civil Services Examination is a national competitive examination in India conducted by the Union Public Service Commission for recruitment to higher civil services of the Government of India.
Two such established alumni of the Goa campus who've not only cracked the exam, but have done so with flying colors are Akshaya Babu and Prashant Sharma. Akshaya Babu is a highly accomplished individual who graduated from our campus in 2017 with a degree in electronics and instrumentation. With work experience at both Johnson Controls and Fulcrum Private Equity, Akshaya's expertise spans both engineering and finance. Alongside her job, she prepared for and cleared two UPSC interviews, achieving an impressive All India rank of 168 this year. We're happy to have Akshaya share her insights and inspire us all today.
Prashant Sharma holds a Bachelor of Engineering degree in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from BITS KK Birla Goa campus. After 3 successful years in the private sector, he achieved an All Indian rank of 259 in the Civil Services exam and was allotted the prestigious Delhi and Union Territory Civil Service. Currently undergoing SDM training in Rohini subdivision of Northwest Delhi district, Prashant brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to share. We would be grateful for you to share your knowledge and experience with us today.
The entire talk today will be structured as questions. We'll start with some basic ones and then include questions submitted via form, after which we will open up to the audience questions as well. So I'll start off with the first question. This is for both of you. Were you always inclined towards working in the civil services? If not, what prompted this shift in mindset?
First of all, thank you very much for having both of us here. It's always a delight to interact with our alma mater, especially when I see such an interest with respect to civil services, because this is an exam that thrives in a lot of guidance that comes from people who have already cleared this exam before. So coming to your question, I was not always inclined towards civil services, in the sense that even when I was in school or when I was in college, this is not my major plan. I had taken a job in the private sector and I was continuing there. That was my initial interest in electronics. But there was a point when I was working in Johnson Controls that I wanted to decide what to do ahead. Should I go for higher studies after writing GRE, or should I go for an MBA, or what should I do? So this was the questions in my mind, and that's where a colleague of mine, he left his job to prepare for civil services. That's when I got to know about what kind of what's the work profile exactly of IAS, IPS, Indian Foreign Service, and so on, and what exactly they do. How are their lifestyles? What do they contribute to the society, and so on. So once I got to know more about it, I started reading about it, and then that's where my interest came from. So I wasn't like traditionally interested in it. There was no one in my family who was a group A civil servant. So I then started preparing after that, along with the job. So that is how the journey has been for me. This is my third attempt, and I had given 2 attempts before, wherein I couldn't make it to the final list in my second attempt. And in my first attempt, I didn't clear the mains also. So this time I've cleared every stage.
Okay, and Prashant, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here to interact with all BITSians. Always feels good coming back, because I remember I used to be on the other side during my college days. So really feels good. Coming to my inclination towards civil services, I hadn't thought of it initially in my college days. I was confused regarding the career path I had to take. My father is also in the services. He is in the IRS, Income Tax Department. So that was always something that I had in my mind, that civil service is something which I can consider, but I wasn't sure of it. So in hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, fine. So in 2015, I got an opportunity to work in the Swachh Bharat mission in the Open Defecation Free initiative. And that really prompted me to go for the career because I realized the kind of power civil servants hold when it comes to bringing social change in the society. So that was a turning point for me. And I started my preparation during the last year of my college. I started a bit of preparation back then. So I gave one attempt without any job, and post which I thought I need to have a backup, because of which I took up a job. So that's how my journey has been. In 2020 attempt, I cleared the exam and I got DANIX, which is Delhi and Union Territory Civil Service. And this year I've secured AIR 259. So I've also worked in this sector for some time now. For the last 1 year, I've been working in the Delhi administration and I've experienced some things hands-on. So it's been a good journey, and yeah, everyone has a different journey. So lots of learnings for me also throughout the course of this journey.
Yeah, that's interesting to know. So now I have a question for Akshaya. Could you share some key lessons from your journey of simultaneously preparing for UPSC exams while working?
The reason I prepared while I was working is because I was not sure initially if this is something I can do, if I can actually crack the exam or not. So that is why I prepared with the job, because I wanted a backup. But once I cleared prelims, I understood that I had some aptitude in this field. But during that time when I was preparing as well as working, I understood that one needs a strategy for the exam. One needs a clear idea of what exactly is the syllabus, what exactly are the questions that are asked. One needs to grasp the exam very well. So that is something I understood during when I was working and preparing. And time management again is becomes very important for a working professional, because you don't have much time off. You have to spend, you have to come back from work and study, and also use your weekends effectively. Every weekend goes off in studying. So in the long term, it takes a toll, but it's something that you have to do for the time being, especially when you're working and preparing. So I think it differs for every individual. They can either work and prepare or not, but either way, they have to understand where they stand in the exam and if they can continue giving it or not, or what exactly are the improvements that one has to do. So it helps that they, if one is working, it helps that they have a backup, but apart from that, you have to focus completely for the exam.
Okay, that's again interesting. So I have another
Yeah.
question for you. How did your background in engineering and finance contribute to your overall understanding of the challenges and opportunities in public administration?
So coming from an engineering background, we were taught this. We have this logical mindset. We're already taught to think analytically about things. We have a good understanding of how like engineering concepts, how we grasp engineering concepts. That helps in understanding civil services concepts as well. But that is about it. But beyond that, we need a nuanced understanding that we have to step out of the comfort zone of engineering. We have to start looking at things from the gray area, especially while we're writing answers for this exam. It's not like our engineering questions where we have, max kind of questioning. Here we have to write points on our own. We have to generate points. We have to think divergently as compared to convergent thinking, which is used in civil services. Which is used in engineering. So I would say that my background helped me in the initial time when I had to understand some concepts, but beyond that, I had to develop the thinking style which is required for public administration, which is very different. Like I was saying before, for example, suppose water is not coming in a particular area, you might just look at one or two reasons. But as a civil servant, you should look at several reasons uh, that might be a reason for this. So I think beyond a person's background, what they develop when they're learning and when they're working matters.
Okay, I'll have a question for Prashant. Similar to the question Ritvik asked Akshaya, Prashant, could you share some of your experience of transitioning from the private sector to the civil services? What motivated you to pursue a career in the public administration?
Certainly. So regarding the motivation part, I shared in the earlier question also that I worked for the Swachh Bharat mission, and that was something which motivated me. Coming to the transition, because I was working in the private sector and I have been in the government sector for the last year. The transition, in my opinion, it has been good for me personally, although things are different in both the sectors. Because in the private sector, we tend to work for like a particular firm, for particular individuals, clients. Although the work is, I would say the work is quite dynamic in the private sector also, but the scope of work is limited to a lesser section of the society relatively. I would say directly. Indirectly, one could say that even the private individuals, they are paying taxes, which is contributing towards the country and all that. But still, the direct focus of work is on very few individuals. Whereas when it comes to the public sector, the scope of work is very public oriented. The kind of work that we do, that has an impact on the masses. So that is one thing which I particularly observed. Second thing is the dynamic nature of work in the public sector. So, as you mentioned, as I've been in the Northwest Delhi district, I've been training there for the last 5 months in the Rohini subdivision. What I realized is that every day is different when in the public sector. No 2 days are similar. We are doing different things every day. One day we are working, say, for example, flood control in the area. Some other day we are working towards something else, making a model village in the area. So every day is different. That is something I realized, particularly for individuals who don't like monotony when it comes to work. I think the public services is a very interesting career choice from that perspective.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The next question is obviously clearing the civil services exam is a significant accomplishment. Could you provide some insights in your preparation strategy and how you managed to excel in such a highly competitive exam?
Uh, should I answer or Akshay?
Prashant, yeah.
Okay, sure. So I've taken a fair number of attempts in this exam. Some things have worked for me, some things have not. So I would share both things. Coming to the excelling part, see, one aspect of it is doing the basics. Basics include certain basic books. I think fair bit of information is there on the internet regarding basic books that need to be covered for every topic. And then there is newspaper, which one needs to do. So this is the basic. But when it comes to getting a rank and taking an edge over others, I think value addition has a big role to play. And that is something which I realized in my later attempts, that value addition is a must when it comes to our preparation. So this includes doing things which maybe others are not doing, which could be good presentation in the answers, incorporating statistics, examples. So I think all of these things matter. And also coming to the excelling part, the exam comprises of three parts: prelims, mains, and interviews. Every stage has different strategy. So coming to the value addition answer writing, that is more relevant for mains, which is the subjective part. Coming to the prelims, it requires a different kind of strategy comparatively, which is more oriented towards guesswork also to some extent, because it is an objective exam which requires that. So a lot of practice is needed for objective questions, doing past year papers, etc. And coming to the interview part, which is the final stage, I think again it requires a lot of practice, speaking practice, reading of different things. Confidence matters a lot in the interview. And I think confidence comes from experience, confidence comes from knowledge. So the knowledge that I've gained over the course of my preparation, plus the experience I gained during my work in my service, in my current service, as well as in the private sector, that has helped. So again, I would say when it comes to excelling, there's no substitute for hard work. There's no substitute for consistent work. And yeah, good strategy. All of these combined together, I believe, can lead to success in the exam.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Prashant, that was a very well detailed answer. Now I'll ask both of you a question. I guess Akshay can answer first and Prashant can answer later. But with both of your impressive All India ranks, what are your aspirations and goals for making a meaningful impact in the public service sector?
Well, our nature of work will depend on the kind of service that we're allotted. There is not only the IAS, there is IPS, Indian Foreign Service, Indian Revenue Service. There's even railway service and postal services, Stanage service, one which Prashant Sharma had gotten selected in before. So there are our work will be based on this service. So if I'm allotted the IAS, service has not been allotted yet. If it is the IAS, then then I'm really interested in working in number one, women empowerment. Okay, especially in the rural areas, because we see that women require economic empowerment in order to be socially empowered. And there are schemes like self-help group and Mahila Kosh and so on, where I would like to implement those in the rural areas to empower women, because once we empower women, an entire generation is empowered. So I would also like to work in the water sector because we see going forward it's going to be one of the major areas of contention, even within states and between states also. So as an administrator, there is a lot we can do to ensure that the water availability of a district actually reaches every home. So there is a government scheme called Har Ghar Jal, where it aims to give universal tap water connection to rural areas by 2024. So these are things I would like to work on. And again, it will depend on the service. If I'm allotted the Indian Revenue Service, then my work will revolve around income tax, taxation, international taxation, investigation, search and seizure, and so on. IPS is on law and order, and again criminal investigation and so on. So it depends on the service which we will be allotted, and we'll get to know that eventually, not at the moment. But I would like to say that irrespective of the specific service that they're allotted, all the services contribute significantly to national development. There is usually misconception that IAS has the most impact, but that is not true. Like whatever service one is allotted, all have a significant impact, and if one gives their best, then they can do a significant impact in the different services.
Yeah, and does Prashant, you have anything to add?
Yeah, certainly. So, coming to what I would like to do, so obviously it will depend on the kind of role that I'm assigned, the kind of role government assigns me. I'll try to fulfill that in a proper manner. That is the first priority. Second thing, irrespective of whatever department I get, one thing which I really want to do is change the image of administration. I make it more approachable, at least from my side. So one thing which I have realized over the last year is that people have a fear when it comes to government and administration. They think that going to government offices is a task. They think many times before that. They face a lot of hurdles. So at my personal level, that is something I would really like to do, irrespective of whatever department I get. And coming to specific things that I would like to work on, my optional is economics, and there's some topics which I feel, there's some issues which I think I would really like to work on whenever I get a chance. One of them, which I have seen, I hail from a village, I have a native village, and I have seen that infrastructure deficiencies exist in many parts of India. This could be with respect to power, this could be with respect to roads, etc. A lot of things. So I would like to address infrastructure issues in India. The current government is also pushing significantly in this direction, and it will be my pleasure to contribute in this field particularly.
Okay, thank you, Prashant. Now I have a question for, again, both of you guys, which is, what advice would you give to aspiring civil service candidates who are preparing for the exam and aiming for a successful career in public administration? We'll start off with you, Prashant.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm assuming that the person seeking advice is currently in the college. That's what I'm assuming. So, my advice to such a person would be that don't go for full-fledged preparation very early. To some extent, it's also important to recognize your interest. So, one could go for certain internships and fellowships also at this age, particularly during the college time, to realize whether they are inclined towards that field or not. Because there are many internships, many fellowships where one gets attached with district magistrates, so they can get a hands-on experience regarding the work and also whether they are fit for that or not. So if someone is in college, maybe one can explore their own interest. And if someone has made up his or her mind for civil services, I would advise that maybe reading newspaper is a good start. One could read Indian Express or the Hindu, which are quality newspapers. That is a good thing to start with. And once that is done and one has like made up his or her mind that the person wants to pursue civil services, then basic books can be started, particularly in the final year of the college. So that is something which I would advise. And obviously, as one progresses, the advice also changes. One gets deeper into preparation. There are other things to look after also. But at the early stage, I think reading newspaper and basic books towards the end of college days is fine, in my opinion.
Thank you for that. Akshay, do you have anything to add in this regard?
Well, because Prashant Sharma has already covered the college phase of the aspirant, suppose there's somebody who's just finished college and they're starting to prepare either full time or with the job, then for them I would say that there are a few things they should keep in mind. Number one, please look at the syllabus because there are a lot of aspirants who don't know and who assume that UPSC asks everything under the sun. That is not true. There's a clearly defined prelims and main syllabus and an optional syllabus in case they've already chosen their optional. So please look at the syllabus and stick to the syllabus. Even if you're reading newspaper, read only those which are relevant and don't read literally every news item that might come. Initially it's okay, but later you should know how to filter. Second, have a strategy for every paper, including your optional papers, including prelims and mains. So what happens is usually people start studying and prelims exam has come and they've only studied for prelims the entire year. This doesn't work because one has to prepare for the mains exam, which is what will fetch you marks. So they have to understand that the strategy should include both prelims and mains initially at the early years, at the early phase of the preparation, and when prelims comes only prelims, and then when mains comes only mains, and then they can go on and prepare for the interview. And suppose they are not able to make it to the final list, then they should look at their mark sheet and look at where exactly they have lost marks, and try and improve on those papers in the next attempt. So these should be kept in mind. And thirdly, previous year questions are also very important for the exam. So my advice would be please look at the PYQ along with the syllabus because then only you'll understand the language of the exam. People go for mock tests and mock exams and so on without looking at what exactly UPSC asks. So once we understand about UPSC, only then will we have a clear picture of what exactly we should do. So these things should be kept in mind for anyone who's starting to prepare.
Okay, so those were some good tips for aspiring civil service candidates. Now I'll be moving on to questions from the form. So we circulated a Google form beforehand where students could submit questions, and I'll be reading a couple of them out now. So the first one is, what's the best time to start UPSC preparation? Should one start during college or after getting placed and prepare while working a job? Either of you can take this.
So I think I briefly touched upon this in my previous response. That I would say particularly during the college days should be more about exploring yourself, exploring your interests. So I personally don't advocate starting preparation that early, like in the first, second year of college. It's more important to determine whether you're actually interested in that or not, for which I recommended one can go for fellowships, internships, etc. And coming to starting the preparation, if one has made his or her mind, then maybe reading newspaper is always a good start. I think that one can start right from the beginning of college. In fact, I would recommend that not only for UPSC aspirants, even for MBA aspirants or people in general. I think being aware is always a good thing. So reading newspaper is something which can be done, and proper preparation maybe from the last year of college. I think one can start if someone has made his or her mind that the person wants to go for civil services and wants to skip college placements. Then I think last year is a good time to start, in my opinion.
I would like to add to what Prashant Sharma said because, after exploring in college and so on, suppose you've made up your mind, working in a private sector and preparing for civil services can be challenging because you won't get as many leaves. And suppose you want leaves between prelims and mains, then it can be difficult to get. Work as such is hectic in the private sector because you have to work for longer hours. There are some public sector jobs that people go for, or they go for state services, they go for RBI and so on. So once they get into a public service, other than UPSC, they then start preparing for UPSC. So that can also be done. So you can look at backup options, which are non-UPSC but public sector backup options, public services backup options. So once you've joined there, you can then take leaves from training. You can then take leaves from your job and then study. That will be easier as compared to going for a private sector job and preparing.
Okay, so that's interesting. So Prashant, you said that you would recommend students to start preparing in the fourth year. One person asked if you recommend any coaching institutes for online preparation.
Uh, I personally didn't take any coaching. I feel that right now a lot of guidance is available, and if one coaching, the only purpose that coaching serves, in my opinion, is that it provides a direction. So many times, what happens is that people start preparing, they don't have direction, they don't know what to do and how to do. So that is the only thing which coaching covers. So if that sort of guidance is available, then I think coaching is not needed. So when it comes to preparing in the fourth year, I would say reading newspapers and doing basic books is more than enough. But if someone really thinks that he or she is not able to understand how to approach preparation, then I think maybe coaching makes sense in that case.
There are several institutions actually. One can look at Vision IAS. They have a good online program, and when it comes to test series, Forum IAS means test series is good, and Insights IAS has several free resources on their internet that one can look at. And topper copies are also available on Vision IAS, so you can look at that. And even there are several Telegram channels that provide resources for free. There are also channels by toppers actually who have given their entire resources. They've given their entire strategy, so they can also be looked at. If you just type UPSC in Telegram, I think you'll get a flood of resources. So there's no dearth of resources, like Prashant Sharma said. Um, Once you get a base from the coaching institute, if you want to, that is, then you can go ahead and prepare.
Thank you for that, Akshaya. Now we'll move on to questions regarding preparation strategies. How would you recommend studying new topics and revising old ones at the same time? This question can be answered by any one of you.
Shall I go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So once we read any topic, I'm assuming the person is reading syllabus wise. If they're reading anything, I would suggest to make notes first. Make notes, not verbose notes like you're writing everything down. Just make notes like introduction, body, conclusion, value addition. Only these things one should note down. So like basic notes, syllabus wise basic notes. Once they've made that, um and so this is for the older topics. So because you make and go and you progress and so on. So once a newer topic comes, you make notes for that topic, and if you have time, you can take a look. Suppose spend half an hour or 1 hour every day and take a look at the notes that you made for older topics, and then move on. Usually, what happens is if you're reading the newspaper every day, there is some topic that comes from there's some topic that is related to something in the syllabus. So you read that topic also whenever you're seeing that newspaper item. So usually this is how the note making phase goes when you have to read new topics. But when the exam approaches, when prelims is over and you want to do mains, then you just read your notes and go. So there you won't have many new topics to do. You just have to read newspaper and add some value addition here and there. Otherwise, you just start revising your notes again and again. So there won't be any new old topic at that stage. At that stage, they're all things you have to revise and go. So the kind of revision you do will change based on what you're preparing for. Suppose you're at the early stage, then you have to do all the old new topics. But I would say at that point of time, don't revise. Don't revise when you've just started out. When you've just started out, read the newspaper properly, read the basic books and all that, get a good base knowledge. Then start making notes. Once your note making exercise is over for the syllabus topics, then you start revising once prelims and mains are near. Don't do old new together, and then it becomes a little difficult to manage because you have to also give test series once prelims and mains come. So you wouldn't have time to do everything together.
Thank you for that, Akshay. Do you have anything to add, Prashant?
Yeah. So in addition to what Akshay said, I think it's always challenging to do both the things simultaneously because while preparing for civil services, there's a lot of new information we come across every day, and it becomes challenging to remember everything because if I read something say today, it's very likely that 10-15 days from now I would have forgotten that, or maybe my retention would be significantly lesser of the events or the facts. So revision is important. I would suggest that, as Akshay pointed out, maybe one could devote a certain time every day, 30 minutes or something for revision. Or if not that, then maybe one day a month, maybe the last day of the month or something, one could devote for revision, maybe some Sunday. So that is something which can be done. And if that is not done, because I mean, I would say this is like somewhat on the ideal side. Most people, I don't think, have are able to. These things are not able to materialize more often than not. What's important is that during the last phase of our preparation, say for example, during the last 3-4 months, like before prelims or the time between prelims to mains, revision becomes very, very important. So it becomes imperative to revise, say, 2 to 3 times because there are so many things, and if you revise them 2-3 times only, then our retention improves. So that is something which I would suggest, that one day a month for revision is perfect. And if that doesn't happen, then like during the last phase of the exam, there should be a lot of focus on revision. So 3-4 times maybe one should revise his or her notes, or like whatever topics are there. That can be done.
Thank you, Prashant, for that. Moving on to our next question. It's for both of you guys. Is there any book you guys would recommend for preparation, or any course you guys would recommend that would be helpful?
There are no one books, there are many books on Astery. Well, one can look at, there's usually a book list available for both prelims and mains. So Prashant had mentioned basic books, right? So it's that book list as per syllabus topics. So one can look at, there are several blogs. One can look at Anudip Durishetty, it's a good start. Anudip Durishetty sir, who is also a BITSian, who had scored All India Rank Con in 2017, if I'm not wrong. So one can look at his blog. There are basic books there. There are several, that's what, no, Telegram channels. Once you look at Telegram channels, again, you'll get a book list. So get a book list ready. Once you get a book list ready, then you start reading books. There's no one course or one book that you read and you clear this exam. You have a list of basic books to do, and once you've done them, you make notes. Once you make notes, you add value to those notes by reading newspaper or plethora of information on the internet. Once you add value, you give test series, and then you're ready for the exam.
I largely agree with what Akshay has said. I don't have much to add. The only thing I would say is that one good newspaper, as I mentioned earlier, that is like very holy in the preparation. That is much needed. And yeah, I guess that's about it. Like one needs to have a book list, and reading the syllabus is also important, I think, at the beginning.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to our next question. How did you decide between IES and IAS? Why not ESE? Would it not have been comparatively smoother? This question's for either one of you.
Okay, so I would like to answer this first. Yes, Indian engineering service is also something in which we can contribute towards nation building. And obviously, as engineers, all of us can, it's a good opportunity for all of us to work. But in my case, personally, to be very honest, I wasn't that much inclined towards my degree. That is something I realized significantly earlier. Even my work experience was in the field of finance. And during my college days, I took up a lot of open electives in the field of economics. So that is what prompted my interest in this direction. So I took up economics optional. I didn't take up engineering optional too. So I think for me, it was more about interest, but certainly ESE is also a very good option. But again, it also depends a lot on what one wants from his or her career. If one wants to work in like the core engineering field, then ESE, but there are many of us inclined towards working in administration also. So I think it's to an extent about aptitude and interest too.
Thank you, Prashant, for that. Anything to add to that, Akshaya?
No, I would agree what Prashant has said. He's on point.
Okay, moving on to the next question. How does one find time to do optional GS and CAS together?
Okay. Optional GSN?
GA and CAs together.
What is GA?
I think it's General Service and Chartered Accountants.
Maybe CSAT, I think.
Hi.
Maybe. I don't know.
You
Okay.
preparing for the CA exam along with this exam? Is that the kind of question it is?
I mean, it's a question in the form.
I think the person is trying to say that there are many things to cover, like while preparing for the exam. So, like, how do you manage all the things together? Something like that, right?
General aptitude. Look at, yeah, the comment section.
Okay.
CSAT, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when you're initially studying, when you're initially starting out, you have to do both your GS and optional. You have to cover the basics of your GS and optional. And once the prelims nears, I would say start at least 2 months before prelims. Stop your mains preparation and go only for prelims, where you look at MCQ kind of questions that are asked. Look at previous year prelims questions. Give test series in case you feel like it's important. And CSAT can also be done during this time. You don't have to do it right from the first. Given that we graduate from BITS, we already have some background in solving max questions, competitive questions in max. So we wouldn't have much of a problem. But even if you feel that there is a problem, solve previous year questions on CSAT, Google the topics you can't answer. For example, probability and statistics, in case you're struggling with it, you can look up the questions and look at how the solutions come, and you can prepare for those topics. There's no need to do some course on CSAT and spend time that way. So once prelims is over, dedicatedly do only mains preparation. At that point of time, I'm assuming you've done optional preparation also. So here, between prelims and mains, you should only focus on revision, answer writing, and value addition. Value addition will be based on newspaper or let's say some other resource you've come across. Only these things should be done between prelims and mains, not anything new, not anything completely new that you haven't read before. Because it's just 3 months, there's a lot of time crunch to do a lot of syllabus topics. Because the syllabus topics are vast, that's why I'm saying look at the syllabus topic first. And once mains is over, you can go for interview preparation. Initially, everything looks confusing because we're new to the preparation. But after a few months, you'll get to know the difference between different subjects and how to prepare.
So yeah, in addition to what Akshaya has talked about, I would also like to say that coming to managing different aspects of preparation, because as the person who has asked the question rightly pointed out, there are many things that we have to take care of simultaneously. There's prelims preparation, mains preparation, optional, GS, lot of things we have to do simultaneously. So what I would suggest is that one needs like proper time management when it comes to this. So proper time management, I think forming a routine time schedule, that helps a lot. This is something which I did in my latest attempt. That in my last attempt, the attempt that I took recently, what I did was I used to have a plan in Excel every day, where I used to devote certain time for certain activities every day. That from this time slot I'll do this, from this time slot I'll do this. This is like an everyday plan, and at the same time I also used to have like a long-term plan that I'll devote say 20 days for GS1, 2 months for my optional. So having a good plan is important. And while following a plan, one needs to know his or her current status in each topic. Say, for example, I'm not feeling very comfortable in my optional and I'm feeling relatively comfortable in GS, for example. So in that case, I would devote more time to my optional, say, I don't know, it could be many days, months, or weeks, or whatever. So that is important, knowing where you stand currently in your preparation, forming a time plan, having a good time management. I think that really helps in the exam. And to some extent, that is linked with the disciplined lifestyle also, which this preparation requires, in my opinion.
Okay, so that's it for the questions from our side. We'll now be accepting questions from the audience as well. So if anyone has a question, they may type it out into the chat box.
I can see a question regarding asked by Amritash Mishra.
Economics related, right?
No, it's in I think the question is about dynamic topics. How do you do dynamic topics as compared to static topics? So once you made syllabus-wise notes, your static topics more or less remain the same. You don't have to do much changes on that. Maybe you need to, when it comes to history, because it's mentioned history, maybe you need to like practice some maps, practice some. Let's say it's temple architecture, then you just practice a structure of a temple and so on. So that things you can do later. But for dynamic topics, once you've made your notes, you have to update it based on newspapers. So first make notes. That's what I'm saying. Like first make notes, and then you'll know what to update and what not based on what is coming in the newspaper.
So, in this, in addition to what Akshay said, I would point out two things. In fact, I would like to answer two questions. I think how to make notes out of current affairs, and the first question regarding the dynamic topics. I think these are linked. So, what one should do, in my opinion, is when one is into preparation, one should look at the syllabus and make a word doc or something and leave one page for every topic written in the syllabus. And whenever we read something in the newspaper, we should add on to those notes. For example, GS3 has many topics. One of the topics in GS3 is food processing, for example. It is there. So if there's an article on food processing, if there's an article on some scheme which government has launched regarding the food processing sector, so one could add on to those notes. So I personally think that is a good approach when it comes to making notes of current affairs. One could make notes differently, like for GS 1, 2, 3, 4, and make it in this pattern. Second, I would say it's also important to look at examples because there is GS4 ethics and at the same time essay paper also. Examples add a lot of value in these papers. So while reading newspaper, it is also good practice to look for examples. So that is important, I guess. And if someone is willing, I'm ready to share my notes also. One can look at them as reference regarding how to make notes also. That's fine. Medieval history.
I think there are a lot of questions. Maybe the host can ask us one by one. We'll be willing to answer.
Yeah, that'll be better, I feel.
Yeah.
Okay, so one question is digital notes good? Should you recommend making digital notes?
I think I'll answer this here. I would strongly recommend making digital notes. In my initial attempts, I didn't used to make digital notes. I used to make notes on paper. But I think that comes with its limitations because sometimes the space gets exhausted. Digital notes are easier to edit. It's easy to add things onto them. So I would strongly recommend them. I would say with changing times, preparation strategy is also changing. So it's a really good idea according to me. In fact, I would strongly suggest it.
Yes, right. Making digital notes is it's much more useful because you can you can edit it easily and you can also structure it better. If let's say somebody is using OneNote, then they can make one just for GS. They can make a notebook for GS1 and then go on make a subtopic of every syllabus. And in every page, they can write the relevant things. They can even add links if they want to, some diagram if they want to, and collaborate also with friends. There are people who study together, right? Study groups. So for them to collaborate again, online notes is very useful. So you definitely can take online notes. But if you're doing answer writing, then do that offline. Please don't do that online. Take a paper and a pen and actually write it. Yeah.
Okay, so another question from Satvik Mishra is how to deal with your personal biases while reading the newspaper or subjects like history?
Akshay?
Okay, I'll answer this. So, if you find that newspapers are biased, read more than one newspaper. It's easy to say, but but I think it helps in practicing it at an early stage. You don't have to read the whole newspaper. Suppose you're reading the Hindu, and if you find, in case you find that the Hindu is biased, then go read the editorials of Indian Express, editorial and explained. Only read that. No, you don't have to go to the entire Indian Express. Just go through that selectively. Or if you don't find that topic mentioned elsewhere, Google that topic and or watch one or two videos available in some discussion videos on it. Some other newspaper would have covered that topic. So just take the topic and Google whichever you feel is biased. Get an overall perspective, because in whichever topic you read, you need a pro and cons. Like you need both sides, and you also need a conclusion. So you have to have balanced perspective in it.
So yeah, I would like to add a bit onto it. Yash also asked this question regarding bias in coverage. So what happens these days, what I have realized is that many events tend to be very emotionally charged. There are certain events which take place which bring out strong opinions amongst people, amongst in newspapers also. So I think rather than forming opinions based on editorials, it's always a good practice to understand the issue completely, to look at the facts of the matter, like what's the issue about, what are the pros, what are the cons, get a whole perspective regarding it. And when one gets that perspective, I think it's easier when it comes to approaching the exam, because exam requires that neutrality also. Exam requires an objective mind, a mind which understands that every issue is like multifaceted. It's things are generally not that simple, right? So I would say reading multiple sources, reading facts of the matter, what exactly has been proposed, all these things get very important. So I would also suggest using internet for this matter, because on internet it's easy to get like both perspectives also.
Okay, our next question is by Vatsala T. For economy, how relevant are the 11th and 12th NCRTs? Is it suggested to go directly to an advanced book after the Indian Economic Development NCRT?
Well, if you've read the 11th and 12th NCRT, then for the prelims perspective, from a prelims perspective, then for the mains, one can look at the vision value added material. I think that helps, and then add from newspapers here and there. I'm not sure if there's any other economics basic book available. Prashant, I think you should
Yeah, yeah.
answer this question. Yeah.
So my optional is economics. So one thing I would like to clear here is that because my optional is economics, I didn't do economics that much from a GS perspective, like from a general perspective. But one thing which I think when it comes to economics is that it's a very scoring part in prelims particularly. So most of the questions are relatively conceptual in nature. So after say reading the 11th, 12th NCRT, you should focus more on understanding the economic concepts and the implications. For example, say recently the topic of inflation like has been very much in news, right? Over the last inflation, soft landing, impact of inflation on growth, how monetary policy rates are hiked to reduce inflation, and the multidimensional impact it can have on the Indian and the global economy. All these things have been in news lately. So what's important is understanding these issues. So newspapers are also important to understand this. Second, I would say that watching videos can also help after reading NCRTs. There are some good videos available, on internet on certain platforms. Watching those videos can help, improve conceptual clarity in economics. Once a person has attained a certain level of conceptual clarity, I think economics becomes easier. So I would say before moving to an advanced book or something, maybe watching those videos can help, to get better conceptual clarity.
There is Mrunal's
Mrunal.
video series, so one
Yeah,
can
yeah.
look at that. Once you don't do NCRTs, you can look at Mrunal's lecture series. Just Google Mrunal Economy UPSC, and you'll get series. Like watch the entire series. Watch. I think he's covered economics in 6 pillars, so one can do that. It's almost every aspirant does Mrunal. He explains it very well. Explains economics very well.
Okay, so I'll ask one last question. After prelims, how should we do writing practice for GS and optionals?
See, coming to the writing practice, what I would say is that best time to do writing practice, I think, is after prelims only. Some people say that one should start writing early, but I still think that until we don't have a certain level of base, writing answers is pointless. So, what I personally suggest is maybe going for a test series that really helps, and one should write 20 questions at one go. One should start writing like in entirety and not just say one question a day. I think that doesn't help, because while writing, you should also take care of time management. during the exam, that is a very key thing because it's a long paper. You have to write about 4,000 words in each paper, and there are two papers like on Saturday and Sunday each. So you are effectively writing about 16,000 words in 2 days, right? So a lot of writing practice is needed. So I would suggest that one should write full papers, and one should maybe start writing one paper a week initially, and then move to say two or three answers, like two or three full papers a week. That is something which I would suggest. And about 12 to 13 GS papers, I think it's good enough, and 5 6 papers of optional, and maybe 4 5 essays also. That is good enough between prelims and mains, according to me.
Some people even do daily answer writing, and but I wouldn't, because once you start reading about strategy, you'll come across this as well, that people have done it. But I wouldn't personally recommend you to do it at an initial stage. Maybe somewhere nearing like prelims is over, and suppose you want to between prelims and mains, and you can write daily answers depending if you have time or not. If you don't have, then I would suggest like that's not very important. And someone has asked about preparing for the essay paper, so I think that also I would like to answer. For an essay paper, there are a wide variety of topics. A topic list for essay paper. Again, you can look at Anudeep Durishetty strategy for essay paper, and go through toppers copies of how they've written essay. So usually they divide essays into like political, economic, social, and so on, and they write the entire essay. So one can look at sample essays, but to start preparing, start writing an essay yourself. Include quotes and anecdotes from the newspaper or somewhere else that you've already know of before. And start writing an essay, see where you make a mistake. Usually flow in an essay is very important. So if you're making a mistake there, then you can lose marks in essay. It happened to me last year. So I would suggest that dedicate some time initially for the essay before prelims itself, and between prelims and mains you can write one every week, like Prashant Sharma said.
Uh, I would probably take up Tirth Patel's question. I think he has asked this twice. What are the consequences of choosing electrical engineering option, and why did you not choose it? Okay. So I think I answered why did I not choose it part earlier in the question on engineering service examination, that I personally was more inclined towards economic side. This is something I realized during my college days only. I took up a lot of open electives like pertaining to economics also. But coming to choosing electrical engineering optional, a close friend of mine has chosen this optional, and that person has scored 289 and 300 in like consecutive attempts. So, if one has a certain command over the concepts of electrical engineering, then I certainly think it's a very good option. It can be very rewarding. One can get very high scores in it also. But I would like to mention that it is better if you have a command over the subject. For example, if you are not very comfortable with the electrical engineering concepts, then doing the optional will take a lot of time. It might take 8 to 10 months. So if one is inclined towards choosing the option, I think the best possible thing would be taking all the college courses, doing them like very seriously, and if one learns during the college days, then I think the journey becomes smoother. So yeah, I mean, it's a good option, and one can certainly opt for it if a person has interest. And I would say interest is like the biggest factor, according to me, when it comes to choosing an option, because option requires quite a lot of preparation, and only if one is interested, only then one can do that option, according to me.
Okay, thank you, Prashant, for that. That's it for the questions. We thank everyone for attending the talk, and also the speakers for sharing their experiences with us. We've uploaded the event as a live stream on our YouTube, so feel free to check that out. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Excuse me, Jeff. I have just
Yeah.
one question.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure, ask.
Yeah. Hello, Akshaya ma'am. Hello, Prashant sir. Just one question. Just last. Sorry, I'm taking your time. Uh, my question is like more on the thinking prospects, like how to think and interpret the information, like whatever we are gaining from the books, reading newspapers, and think more maturely, and how to make that level of understanding so that uh, when we are writing in the mains paper, what exactly we should be looking in our brain, like what exactly should be like writing in, how to make that level of understanding more mature.
So I would say in this case, see, one cannot desire his or her thinking to be mature suddenly. It's a process. So once you start reading newspapers, I would say having a good friend circle also helps. If you have people around you who are very balanced when it comes to their viewpoint, who always give you different side of things, I think that also helps. So it's a process. The more you read, the more you interact with people, different kind of people from different backgrounds, the more you read diverse opinions, I think the thinking automatically gets refined and more mature. So it's a process. I mean, if you read like diverse things, if you interact with diverse people, I certainly think that it happens automatically. Like you will see that change. So I mean, that part is very important. Good interactions and good readings for that.
Yes, I think mature understanding comes with interactions. If you have a good circle, else else I would say that, see, this exam takes at least a year to prepare initially, and then suppose you haven't cleared any stage, then again it takes another year for you to prepare. So exam goes on for a long period of time. So when you're reading the same things again and again, eventually you develop a deeper understanding. Every time you read it, for the second time you're reading it, the third time you're reading it, then get a more nuanced perspective. The nuanced understanding comes with repetitive reading of topics, of the syllabus topics. So initially you might find it overwhelming, everything looks overwhelming because there's plethora of information. But once you have made basic notes, once you're reading those again and again, once you're reading newspaper again and again, you're discussing, suppose you can, and you're writing answers and so on, you develop a better understanding. And suppose you haven't cleared the first time and you're reading it the next time you develop an even better understanding. So that's how it's a process towards, once your first attempt is over, you will find that you have a better understanding of the exam. So it depends for everyone, but things take time because of the vast syllabus. It takes time. So if you feel that your thinking is not mature, or if you're not able to understand things well right now, keep at it. Have patience, keep at it, read it again and again, you'll be able to understand.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Someone has asked only about prelims. I think it's important that we cover it here because a lot of people get stuck in the prelims phase of the exam. They're able to clear prelims, but not mains. So then there's no point of the preparation because mains exam marks matter. So the prelim strategy is, first you cover the basic books of prelims, and then you don't have to make notes out of for prelims especially. If you feel that there are some facts in the newspaper that you want to cover, then you write it down. Otherwise, you cover the basic books, highlight in them things that you feel are important, and go read Visionize PT 365 in case you feel that you have some gap in your preparation. So that usually people do for current affairs. So basic books, Vision, PT 365 should be your sources. After that, give mocks. So this is at the early stage. Okay, mocks you have to give in case you feel that you are not scoring well in mocks initially. So give mocks, give like 3, 4, 5 mocks. You can even give a set of mocks. That's usually around 20 sets. People give those mocks. Analyze which areas you have a problem in. Some people have difficulty in history because it's difficult to remember those facts. Some people find geography difficult. So understand where you're losing marks. And thirdly, look at look at the previous year questions. Please solve previous year questions. Like I've said before, also solve previous year questions. Have somebody to discuss previous year questions with. Even mocks also you can discuss with someone. If you solve the entire paper, discuss with somebody about what was their thought process in solving it, because it's an MCQ. It's very easy to go wrong. uh, Once you've done 50-50, elimination becomes very difficult to then to choose between 50 and 50. So there also you need help. So go discuss with someone or analyze your own thought process where you went wrong in the mocks and then cover it. Make those changes. This is like 2 months between prelims. You can do this. You don't have to do it right from day one. Between 2 months, like before 2 months before prelims, only do prelims. So there you do all this, elimination strategy and all of that. And 2 hours, right? Like 2 hours is like very less. It's cutthroat. You have to do proper time management, around 1 minute per question, and solve mocks also like that. And once you clear prelims, then you can do mains properly. But you should have mains base ready before. So you pick it up after prelims. You pick it up, enhance it, and then give mains. You have anything to add for prelims, Prashant?
Yeah. No, I largely agree with what you mentioned, Akshay. I think prelims is very challenging, and you have rightly pointed out the kind of strategy which the exam requires. I think, past year papers, doing them becomes very important when it comes to prelims. Prelims also involves a degree of intelligent guessing, so figuring that is very important in prelims. And I think that comes from attempting past year papers so that one gets some kind of idea regarding what kind of options are generally correct or incorrect. I mean, this sounds a bit weird, I guess, but then, I mean, this is a very important part of prelims. Figuring what's right, what's wrong. I mean, a degree of guesswork will always come up because, even after like these many years of preparation, and I talk this with my colleagues also, that one only knows about 30 to 35 questions in prelims with certainty. Rest of the questions require a degree of guesswork. So that is one very important aspect of prelims, and that can only improve with practice. And past year papers are like the best source of practice. Apart from that, also I would say one can practice like some coaching papers. Also, I would say they are not very reliable, but still practice is needed, and still a good source for practice. So yeah.
Thank you for that, Prashant and Akshaya. I guess now we'll end the talk.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Thank you.
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you.